Aloha, folks, and welcome to this latest edition of Five Questions. It's a conversation that airs both on KHVH radio and can be found right here on HawaiiReporter.com as well. It's a pleasure to welcome on board a gentleman that's been a part of our community's top of mind group for years now. Well, not too many years because he's still a young fella. But when it comes to tech and also an observation about not only business but also politics in our town, we'd like to welcome Mr. Peter Kay on board with us today. Peter, aloha to you.
Aloha to you, Rick, and thank you so much for having me on your show. It's really an honor.
It's a pleasure as always, sir. We're going to start off with question number one, which might have a couple components to it, but I always like to find out a little bit more about whom our guest is. Would you mind telling us about yourself?
Thank you, Rick. Yeah, when people ask me what I am, for years and years and years, I tried to figure out what I am and who I am and what I'm doing. And I think what I tell people today is I'm a tech entrepreneur. I've been entrepreneuring in the state of Hawaii since 1984, which makes that 27 years as of this day. And I've done nothing but tech my entire life. Since I was 5, I knew I was going to be in technology. What I basically do is I invent new technology and try to build a business around it. And if it does well, try to sell the business or sell the technology and move on to the next one. And right now I'm kind of on my 7th, I can't remember if I'm on my 6th or 7th cycle of doing tech entrepreneuring in Hawaii. So I am a tech entrepreneur. That's my full-time position, so to speak, if you will.
That is amazing. You mentioned 5 years of age of knowing exactly what you wanted to do. What was the catalyst for that?
It's one of those things where I can only say it is by the grace of God, because I remember distinctly, and I remember this, distinctly being at family parties, Christmas time, Thanksgiving, etc., being 5 years old, and I come from a Greek family in Chicago, just like my big fat Greek wedding, almost exactly. That's my story there. But anyway, so
wow.
Being at these family gatherings and being 5, and my uncle saying, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" And me looking up at him and not even knowing why I even said it, saying, "I'm going to be involved with computers." And I remember saying this since I was 5. And it's just one of those weird things. And I was always mesmerized by technology. I was always completely captivated by the future. I always, loved things about, futuristic movies, 2001 Space Odyssey, that kind of stuff, future stuff, computer stuff, technology stuff. And I kept that theme through my whole life. I remember being in 3rd grade in my elementary school and going to the science fair and being absolutely captivated by the kid who had a computer in front of him and knowing that I was going to do that one day. And it's always been that way. It's never been different. Always been tech, always been technology, always been about the future, always.
Well, we have the right guy because, we're in a point in our collective lives where technology is not only pervasive, but it's a necessity in life. And when you couple your talent of tech entrepreneurialism with the business climate here in Hawaii, I'd like to go to question number 2 and to get your take of exactly what is the business climate in Hawaii and how do we navigate around it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I have to say, and I know this is going to cause some controversy, but it is what it is, and it's my opinion. Hawaii is a terrible place for a technology company. It's awful, and it's awful because all kinds of things are missing, but the most important component that is missing, and I know that there is no one in the tech industry who will argue with me on this, the most fundamental component of a successful technology business is people and intellectual capital, and Hawaii has unfortunately, a terrible public school system, and it is simply not producing essentially the raw materials. In a technology company, what is the raw material? If you think about it, what's the raw material in a tech company? The raw material is our thoughts, things that come out of your brain. It's like oil, but instead of oil, it's thoughts and thinking that comes out of your brain. So we fundamentally need people who can, think things through. We need good intellectual capital. If you don't have intellectual capital, you can't have a technology industry. Hawaii simply does not produce sufficient raw raw intellectual capital to support a tech industry, and that's why this place is terrible for a tech industry. Now, people might say, well, what the heck are you doing here? And the real simple truth is I'm here because I love Hawaii. I love the people of Hawaii. I love the land of Hawaii, and I don't care. I'd much rather have a tiny technology company in Hawaii than have a giant technology company in San Francisco, and that's my personal choice.
You know, and unfortunately, the well-documented travails of our education system has gone, unfortunately now, for more than 1-2 generations.
Yep.
So it appears, Peter, that we are reaping what we have sown in the past, that we have not been prepared to take advantage of innovation and this wonderful landscape that's been created. It's kind of like we're, if we're in a 50-yard race, we're kind of back at the starting line.
Well, it's just one of those things. Is those of us that have been here, like you, like me, that we've been here for a long, long time. We've just come to accept things for the way they are, and it is unfortunate. It is what it is. And I think what really, really saddens me about this tremendously is that, the great majority of local families in Hawaii who have struggled to put their children through a good school, who have struggled to put their children into college, who are proud to see their children graduate with a fantastic degree, the reward for all that work is that their kids understand that they have to leave, and they leave Hawaii because there's just that climate, that landscape, that qualified, highly educated, qualified intellectual people just doesn't exist here. So it's a terrible paradox. You can't start a tech company because there's no intellectual capital produced, and at the same time, if you do develop your self-intellectual capital, chances are you're going to probably leave. It's terrible and it's sad. And I don't want to think about it too much because it just
right. But there's another side to it not only the tech side, it's the actual fundamental business side of doing business. Can you relate to us not just the technology aspect, but just the basics of doing business in Hawaii?
Well, let me tell you about this is my perspective, and I'm going to.
Peter, you there with us?
I am.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead. Sorry.
I'm sorry about that. I'm going to ask for forgiveness in advance to all my business colleagues who are going to disagree with me, but this, again, is my opinion, my view of this place. And the way I see Hawaii is and the business climate in Hawaii has basically two major sort of ecosystems. And one business ecosystem in Hawaii is what I'm going to call the Bishop Street crowd or the Merchant Street crowd. And these are the long-established companies that have monopoly positions that go way back to pre-statehood. And these companies are very, very well entrenched with a power structure that they're deeply involved in government, they're involved with organized labor, and they're involved with holding on to monopoly positions. And those are the companies that make the lion's share of the economic benefits in Hawaii. They're protected, they have monopoly positions, they exert power, they exert influence, and their job is to maintain the status quo. That's the one ecosystem that you have running, and they're part of the fundamental power and political power structure in Hawaii. Then you have the other ecosystem, and the other ecosystem is, I don't want to coin a term here, the 99%, but it actually comes up to be more like 97%. It's the 97% of all the other businesses in Hawaii which are small businesses, and small is certainly less than 100 employees. Most of them are less than 5 employees. And these are the folks that are everyday families running their own business and are basically struggling to survive, to pull crumbs from a market, to kind of work month to month, not to say paycheck to paycheck, but live precariously, struggle to survive, and that makes up the small business community. So you've got the big entrenched monopolistic power structure that keeps the status quo, and then you've got everybody else who is kind of struggling to make it. And people fall on one of the two camps. And I think because of the power structure side of things, which doesn't like a true free market economy, doesn't like the concept of true competition, etc., it creates an environment. It lends itself to an environment of high taxation, restrictive regulations that don't like new entrants coming in the marketplace, and it does not facilitate a competitive growth society, a competitive growth free society. Rather, it empowers a limited choice, monopolistic, centralized government, centralized control. Not that in a very, very poor competitive environment, a very, very poor chance for economic growth. And that's why I fundamentally believe we have what we have. How's that a mouthful?
No, that's all right. I mean, and these are the things that need to be said. There needs to be a frank conversation and to have stimulating thoughts about what the realities are instead of, sugarcoating and using euphemisms and being vague that we hear from most quarters. We just have to call it as it is, and we appreciate your perspective because of your entrepreneurialism. You are enmeshed with what is taking place in our business community here. So I did kind of combine question 2 and 3 together, so I'll just move to question number 4. And it's obvious that legislatures around the country, our Congress, have great influence on technology, whether it's its development, regulation, etc. What has been legislative influence here at home, Peter, that you've experienced, either pro or con, and what is the future and associated impact of what the legislature or other governing bodies might have on the industry?
Thank you for asking that, because I'll tell you something. There was the latest legislative initiative that has sunsetted was the famous Act 221 in Hawaii. Act 221 very quickly was a very, very aggressive and heralded set of tax incentives that allowed people to invest in technology companies and have extremely, extremely favorable tax treatment. That was a fascinating chapter in Hawaii's history, because I was involved almost at every level of that Act 221. I was involved from an investor level, where I invested in an Act 221 company. I was also an entrepreneur, where I started an Act 221 company that received Act 221 investments. I was a little bit involved in the early pieces of giving some small input into the legislation that was done. I was involved with the lobbying to continue Act 221, and I was involved and kind of watching it sort of slowly implode. So I was at it from all angles, and so what I can say clearly, it was a great education for me, because it really demonstrated. It was a defining moment in sort of my political maturity, because what was amazing about Act 221 is, number one, it had the best of intentions. It had industry support, and it had a very, very competitive, aggressive situation. Hawaii had the best tax environment in the country for tech. Here's what happened. What happened was it boomed. There was, I don't know what the number was, but I think it was in the billions of dollars, if not certainly millions, if not billions of dollars were invested in the tech industry. Tech companies cropped up all over the place. And then what occurred was because of these policies, the policies were so tax aggressive that they actually warped the business environment. So what started happening was, all these companies that were started were, not to say they weren't shell companies, because they weren't. They were legitimate tech companies, but they really weren't built on strong economic fundamentals. They were built on strong tax fundamentals. So what you had was, you had all these companies that started. They didn't do well as businesses. And then what happened was, the tax law came to a close. The legislature did not renew the tax law, and even there were some sessions earlier where they started to clamp down on the previous tax benefits to a small degree. And what the end result was, at the very, very end, was this. The investors who put their money in Act 221 companies did very, very well. the state, there were some conflicting reports, but there was sufficient evidence to indicate that the state made its money back in terms of general excise tax revenue, payroll tax revenue, economic revenue, et cetera. All of those things, the state seemed to at least break even. But when the whole thing was over, the tech industry was absolutely destroyed.
Wow. So
this was a great example to illustrate this great Reagan line, which is, I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Right.
And so my takeaway from this, and this has really kind of continually shaped my political views, is that, many people define things in terms of, these days, it's popular to define things in terms of left or right, you're liberal or you're conservative, et cetera. And I think there's a different way to slice this, and this is the way my view is now. And my view is, do you slice it amongst a big government or do you slice it amongst a limited government? Are you for a free society or are you for a controlled society? And I think the 2-to-1 model told me that it would have been far, far, far better to reduce regulation, to reduce taxes across the board, and to let businesses thrive and justify their own existence through their own means, rather than have well-intentioned government programs get involved. Unfortunately, whenever government programs get involved, it is absolutely inevitable that they create the wrong kinds of incentives that skew people to do things that they would not otherwise do. And when the government incentives inevitably go away, the reasons that people did those things also go away, and you have a collapse.
Yeah. Appreciate that. That's a wonderful summation and also conclusion, because it was such a remarkable part of our landscape.
It was.
We're already at our question number 5, and Peter, if folks would want to contact you directly for whatever reason, what's the best way they could do that?
Best way is just Google Peter Kay Hawaii, or you can go to yourcomputerminute.com. But if you Google Peter Kay Hawaii, I'll show up. You can go to the yourcomputerminute.com website, and there's a contact Peter Kay, and you can submit a form, and it'd be easy to get a hold of me. That's the easiest one of them all. That's an easy question, Rick.
That's not bad, but it's not the last one.
Oh, okay. Okay.
We do have one more for you, Peter, and this is 5 questions with Peter Kay.
I thought that was question number 5. Okay, good.
Counting schmounting,
Okay.
And I'd like you to take a step and perhaps talk with our friends who are in business today in Hawaii. And what can you share with them to ensure that they are really capitalizing on what's available in tech today and how it can help their business? And maybe one specific aspect is social media. Is it a fad or is it forever?
Oh, that's a good one. Thank you. I've been looking at and kind of taking a sort of an analytical perspective on social media and kind of what's it all about. And I've developed, in fact, an entire program, entire campaign for social media based on quite a different view than what most people take. The thing is this, is that, number one, social media is absolutely a monster. It is absolutely, it has taken over the web. Quick statistic, Facebook is now bigger than Google. People spend far more time on Facebook than they spend on Google. 50% of the traffic, for example, 50% of the mobile traffic that goes into the UK, for example, is Facebook traffic. There's some astounding numbers. YouTube, there was a Volkswagen commercial that was produced on YouTube. Almost everyone saw it. It's the Darth Vader commercial with the kid doing magic on a Volkswagen car. That YouTube video was viewed by 37 million people.
Sheesh.
So some crazy numbers. There's and funny enough, that we even have a local story about this. There's a famous guy that mostly teens know about, but there's a guy named Ryan Higa, also goes by the name of Niga Higa. And I don't know if you've ever heard of. Have you ever heard of Ryan Higa, Rick?
I have actually, yes.
Okay, good. Right. So those who know that Niga Higa, or Ryan Higa, lives in Hilo, and he's the number 2 most popular YouTube channel. And I just looked, funny enough, I just looked a few minutes before we got on the phone. I looked at his channel and saw that, get ready for this, he's had his videos on his channel have had over 1 billion views.
Whoa.
With a B. D, with a B.
With a B.
With a B. He got over the 1 billion views mark.
That's insane.
It's mind-boggling.
Oh, my goodness.
It's mind-boggling. And it's a kid in Hilo. It's a kid in Hilo who's making funny videos. So there's no question that this thing is the real deal. The question is, how do companies leverage on it? And I've come up with a very, very specific campaign, but the essence of the secret that most companies miss is this. It's not about, people are always people use sort of various bragging rights to say, oh, I've got this many friends on Facebook, or I have this many followers on Twitter, or I have this many likes on my page, and all that kind of good stuff. But the thing is, it's not at all about how many followers you have. It's not at all about how many likes you have. It's not about that at all. The secret of succeeding in social media, and I'm going to give this out to even all my competitors who are listening, but that's okay. The secret to social media is you have to, as a business, you have to identify what type of content that your company creates do people want to naturally share about themselves. That's a kind of a complicated sentence, so let me kind of unpack that just a little bit. Mm-hmm. Let's use an example, Rick, from one of our favorite toys, cars.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
You love cars, I love cars, a lot of guys love cars. If I was an auto dealer, and I don't have any auto dealer clients, but if I was an auto dealer, what would I be doing as far as social media? Well, number one, I want to be capitalizing on the fact that people who buy cars love their cars. Mm-hmm. So what I would do is I would come up with a creative way. When my customers buy a car from my store, I want to come up with a way to take a mini YouTube video of them stepping into their car for the first time. I want to be photographing them getting into their car for the first time. I want to be showing, various media about my customers loving their first car experience. I would stick it on my YouTube channel. I would share it on my Facebook page. And then what kind of magic thing do you think would happen? What would the customer do with that YouTube video?
Share, and share alike.
You got it. They would share the heck out of it. Mm-hmm. And that's the number one thing. So it's not about how many Facebook pages likes I've got. What I want my customers sharing content about their lives that intersects with my business to all of their friends. That's the secret.
Excellent.
Of social media.
Excellent. Well, this has been fantastic. And in just 5 questions, we thank you very much for doing it. By the way, did I mention 5? It's actually 50 questions. So, no. But again, tell us where we can find you and how folks can connect with you.
Just Google Peter Kay Hawaii. Otherwise, you'll get the Peter Kay comedian who's in the UK, and that's not me. So just go Peter Kay Hawaii, and you will find me.
All right, my friend. This has been tremendous. And
thanks,
for all of our friends dialed into KHVH Radio, also like to let you know that we'll be able to visit with Peter on HawaiiReporter.com and get in contact with Peter for anything and everything. And we thank you so much, buddy, for your time.
Thanks a lot, Rick. It was great.
All right. Take care. All the best.
Aloha.
Bye now.